Hello everyone. Here we're going to look at your South Plains area severe weather climatology from the year 1950 through 2014. And keeping in mind in this particular report here, tornado reports date back 1950 through 2014, but hail and wind reports actually begin in the year 1955 and lasting through 2014. So if we look at the Lubbock National Weather Service 24 county warning area, we see observed tornadoes here in that period, ranging from the far southern Texas Panhandle down into the South Plains and off into the rolling plains. And you see the main hub there of tornadic activity ranging from the far southwest Panhandle, so say Freona, over to about Silverton into Briscoe County there, more into the far southern central Panhandle, and then down into the northern South Plains and dropping down toward Lubbock and into the central South Plains. And keep in mind, some of this has to do with population being higher, where you see the greater number of tornadoes, along with being west of the Caprock Escarpment. So you've got a greater line of sight and visibility for reports to be able to be recognized and sent in to the National Weather Service here in Lubbock. Yearly distribution of tornadoes. This is going to vary in any given year, as it will with wind and hail. But we look, and since about 2010, we really haven't had a significant number of tornadoes here in the South Plains. Average, give or take, around 15 tornadoes on a yearly basis. And last year in 2014, just seeing two throughout the course of the entire year, both of those being EF zeros. The monthly distributions, not surprising as we get into mid to late April and then into May, where we really ramp up our severe weather climatology in our peak season for severe thunderstorm activity, and then that lasts until about mid-June there. You see the sharp peak, and then we drop off there pretty considerably into the summer and into the fall months before ramping it back up again as we get towards spring, with basically no activity for the most part throughout the winter. Hourly distribution, this is based a lot on daytime heating, and when we get that instability for thunderstorm development and subsequent tornado potential, and also when we get the low-level jet to kick in across the southern plains of the United States. So really, again, late afternoon into the evening hours is where we see that potential really linger on, and then even into the overnight period there into midnight and 1 a.m. And again, likely due there a lot to the low-level jet maintaining its influence there as a nocturnal forcing mechanism down low in the atmosphere. Looking at intensity of tornadoes and number of tornadoes per what we call what is now the EF scale, Enhanced Fujita scale. So 0 being the weakest and 5 being the strongest. And again, this is a scale based on damage done by National Weather Service storm surveys following tornado events. So the vast majority fall into that F0 and F1 category, and then the only F5 tornado documented in the Lubbock County warning area was the one back on May 11th of 1970 that went through downtown Lubbock. And here looking at fatalities and injuries based on tornadic intensity. So there that F5 I just alluded to, you can see the injuries and fatalities that were unfortunately associated with that. And then as expected, we drop off as you get toward the weaker realm of tornadoes there, speaking in terms of the F0s and 1s. And fatalities and injuries by hour. So really getting into the mid-evening or so, around 9 p.m., and then that spiking again after midnight, and due to having people at home, say, being comfortable, maybe not paying attention as much to thunderstorms developing as it gets more toward the later evening and into the overnight, when likely be sleeping and not having a maybe not having a no weather radio there to wake you up and alert you. So certainly want to continue stressing having those on and plugged in, especially during severe weather season. And here, moving on to hail. Again, as I mentioned, a lot of variability year to year, and do want to make sure you take note there. Getting into the late 1980s, you kind of start to see a real overall ramp up, and likely due here to population really increasing across the South Plains at that particular time. So likely not as large of a spike here in hail events as we see if we would have had more abled reports before this time period. But again, 2014 down from the last several years in terms of hail events across the South Plains. And then the monthly distribution here of hail events. So again, the April time frame through about mid-June is really where we see that ramp up in intensity there associated with our much stronger and severe thunderstorm activity. And then the hourly distribution, similar to that what we saw with tornadoes, so late afternoon into the evening and even a little bit lasting into the overnight hours there. And finally, looking at wind events, and the same issue here, getting into the late 1980s through about now, where we really see those ramp up in reports due to the increase in population. But again, 2014 there, the last group of bars on the right, you see lower than the past several years have been since our extremely hot and dry year there in 2011. And then really ramping up into May and June there. Once again, our peak severe weather season, we see those reports much higher than any other month throughout the entire year. And as we get into June and the summertime there, we can start to get some more what we call northwest flow events. So storms moving in off the higher terrain of New Mexico, and when those form into one kind of concentrated complex, they have the potential to produce more wind damage than they would a tornado or hail threat. And finally here, the hourly distribution, much similar, getting into really the evening time frame again, and then into the early overnight hours as that low-level jet maintains its influence. So this was just a subset of the climatological stats we've put together across the South Plains here. This link referenced on the slide has much more, goes into much more detail and in-depth information. And also at the end of that document listed there, that PDF, we go into a county by county severe weather climatology for tornadoes, wind, and hail. So please feel free to get online and peruse and check that out. And we'd love to solicit any feedback we can from you. And you can find our email address at the bottom of our webpage. So thank you for listening and have a great day.